They say your life can change in a moment. Mine changed over roasted chicken and awkward silence. It was a Friday night, the kind that usually smells like comfort food and echoes with the distant sound of sitcom laughter from the living room. Instead, the table was set too neatly, the wine was already poured, and my wife, Claire, wore perfume she only used for parties, not dinner with her husband. So, she said, slicing into her food without making eye contact, "How was work?" "Quiet," I said, watching her more than I was watching my plate. "How about you?" She shrugged. The usual. But there it was, that look in her eyes. Not guilt, not quite. More like detachment. Like she was already gone, just hadn't packed yet. "You're not hungry?" she asked, noticing my untouched plate. "I'm trying to figure out what I'm eating." She blinked. "It's chicken, James." I nodded. "I know. Just doesn't taste like yours." She laughed, a little too quickly. New recipe. New perfume. New recipe. New everything, apparently, except the husband. I didn't push further that night. No accusations. No drama. I just smiled and said, "Tastes great," while my gut screamed otherwise. Something was off. And if there's one thing you learn in 10 years of marriage, it's when your wife is hiding something. The next day, I didn't go to work. Instead, I followed her. You'd think I feel shame admitting that. I don't. She taught me how to question everything, including her loyalty. I watched from a distance as she pulled into a hotel parking lot at noon. Classy place. She always did have good taste, even in betrayal. She walked in. Alone. 20 minutes later, a man walked in after her. Tall. Sharp suit. Smiled like the world owed him something. My hands tightened around the steering wheel. But I waited. I needed to be sure. Because the last thing I wanted was to accuse her of something she could talk her way out of. 2 hours later, they exited. Separate. Smart move. I snapped a photo anyway. Not for revenge. Not yet. Just to have the truth in my pocket. I didn't sleep that night. I laid in bed beside her, listening to her breathe like nothing was broken between us. She wore a silk sleep shirt and curled away from me like a stranger on a plane. It used to be habit, her leg over mine, her arm tucked around my chest. Now, it was like sharing a bed with a polite tenant. Saturday morning, I played the good husband. I made eggs. She didn't eat them. "I'm meeting Rachel for brunch," she said, pulling on boots that cost more than my first car. "Tell her I said hi," I replied, smiling like a man who hadn't just followed her to a hotel room the day before. I watched her leave, then dialed a number I never thought I'd need. "Hunter Investigations," the voice said on the other end. "This is Aaron. I need to find out who my wife's sleeping with," I said calmly. There was a pause. Then, straight to the point. "I like that. Let's set up a meeting." Aaron was ex-military and half caffeine, half intuition. She had a handshake like a vice and eyes that saw through drywall. "She's careful," I told her. "Smart. They always are," she said. "Until they're not." 3 days later, she handed me a folder thick enough to knock out a medium-sized raccoon. Photos. Hotel receipts. A time-stamped shot of Claire entering room 417 with the tall stranger from the parking lot. A man identified as Peter Hallstrom. Divorced. No kids. CEO of some boutique finance firm with the charm of a used car ad. "Your wife's been seeing him for about 6 weeks," Aaron said, flipping through her notes. Lunches. Hotels. Even a weekend in Napa. I didn't react. Not outwardly. Just nodded, thanked her, and drove home in silence. The kind of silence that's not really quiet. It hisses. It hums. It replays every dinner, every late night at the office, every sudden girl's trip that now made perfect, bitter sense. She walked in that evening, smiling like she hadn't just set fire to a decade of trust. "Want to order in?" she asked. "Sure," I said, looking at her face for signs of guilt. There weren't any. Just Claire, calm, radiant, and 1,000 miles away. It was confirmed. The affair was real. Now the question wasn't whether she cheated. It was what I was going to do about it. I didn't confront her. Not yet. See, most men make the mistake. They find out, then go nuclear. Shouting, throwing things, demanding answers. But I wanted more than answers, I wanted control. So I played dumb. Which, for the record, I've been told I'm surprisingly good at. I started getting warmer. Kinder. The kind of husband who actually listens to her stories about yoga class and Karen's annoying new boyfriend. I smiled more. I brought home wine. I even booked a weekend getaway to Lake Tahoe. "Claire?" She looked at me sideways for a full week. I could see it behind her smile. Suspicion. Guilt. Confusion. all three battling for room in her head. Then came the slip-up. Thursday morning. She left her phone on the kitchen counter while she took a shower. Normally, she'd clutch that thing like a lifeline. But she forgot. Or maybe just got too comfortable. I don't know what made me check it. Habit. Instinct. Or maybe just the fact that liars never change their patterns. There it was. A text from Peter H. Peter, can't wait to see you tonight. That perfume you wore yesterday? Still on my pillow. Naughty girl. She'd even favorited the message. I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. I just took a screenshot, sent it to myself, and deleted the message. I left her phone right where it was. When she came back, she kissed me on the cheek and said, "You're being so sweet lately." "Maybe I'm just remembering what I have," I replied, watching her flinch ever so slightly. Later that day, I went to the bank and opened a new account in my name. Transferred a modest amount, just enough to fund the next few steps without setting off alarms. I also made a call to an attorney. Not to file yet, just to gather information. Divorce? Yeah, maybe. But revenge? Now that had real potential. Claire started whistling in the mornings. I kid you not, whistling. The same woman who used to groan when the coffee machine took more than 30 seconds to brew now walked around the kitchen like she was the lead in a detergent commercial. Bright eyes. Breezy chatter. A bounce in her step like life had finally clicked into place. She thought she was fooling me. To her, I was the sweet, suddenly attentive husband, trying harder, loving more. Probably making up for some imaginary sin she dreamed up to justify her own. That's how these things work. Guilt needs a scapegoat, and she was convinced I must have been distant first. Classic projection. "You're in a good mood," she said one morning, eyeing me from across the table as I read the paper. "Just grateful," I said, sipping my coffee. "For what?" I met her gaze. "For the life we built." She smiled at that, wide and polished. But there was something behind her eyes. Not warmth. Not love. Just calculation. You could almost hear the gears turning. He knows something. Or maybe he doesn't. The uncertainty was delicious. That night, she worked late. Funny thing about infidelity, it runs on a schedule. You can set your watch to the lies once you know the rhythm. 5:30 p.m. was when the text would come. Some excuse. Some vague client dinner. Every time, like a script. But now, I didn't just know where she was. I knew which room she'd be in. Aaron, my private investigator, had confirmed it down to the reservation. So I cooked dinner. Her favorite, garlic rosemary chicken. Set the table. Candles. Even opened that overpriced bottle of Pinot we were saving for an anniversary that clearly meant more to me than her. I ate alone, of course. Left her plate in the microwave. Covered. Still warm when she finally walked in at 9:42 p.m. "Smells amazing," she said, sniffing the air. "Sorry I missed it." "No problem," I said, standing up to clear the table. "Hope the client dinner went well." She hesitated, coat still on. "It did." "Which client was it again?" She blinked. "Oh, Michelle. From the Worthington account." I nodded slowly. "Tell her I said hello next time." Claire laughed. "James, you've never met Michelle." I smiled. "Doesn't mean I can't be polite." She looked at me a little too long before heading upstairs. The mask didn't slip, but it wobbled. And just like that, I had her. The next few weeks played out like a slow, delicious unraveling. Every time she lied, I gave her more rope. Every dinner she skipped, I left the table set. Every time she came home with wine breath and tired feet, I offered to rub her shoulders. "You're being incredible lately," she said one night, curled up on the couch with a blanket she didn't need. "I'm trying," I replied, brushing her hair behind her ear. She looked at me like she almost believed I didn't know. Almost. Then came the invitation. Peter was hosting a charity gala at the downtown ballroom, a real peacock event for the rich and delusional. And Claire, bless her forked heart, wanted me to come. "Seriously?" I asked, feigning surprise. "Of course," she said. "You've been working so hard. We haven't gone out in forever." Translation: I need a cover. Peter, it turned out, had no idea I existed. Claire had played the "we're separated" card with him. Something vague and dramatic, probably involving emotional distance or finding herself. He thought I was some washed-up husband she'd emotionally outgrown. A name on papers, not a person. That would be his first mistake. The night of the gala, I wore the suit she liked, the charcoal gray one with the tight cut. She stepped out of the bedroom in a black dress I hadn't seen since our 5th anniversary. Back then, it had felt like love. Now it felt like theater. "You look beautiful," I said, and I meant it. She smiled and kissed my cheek. You clean up well. We arrived at the gala just after 7. Tuxedos. String quartet. Champagne flowing like the Nile. And there, by the bar, stood Peter Hallstrom, laughing, drink in hand, flashing his watch like it owed him rent. Claire froze the moment she saw him. It was subtle, a half-second pause in her stride, the flicker of panic she tried to mask with a sip of champagne. I leaned close and whispered, "Friend of yours." She glanced at me, eyes wide. "Just someone from work. Don't worry about him." "Oh, I'm not worried." We mingled. I met some executives I didn't care about. She stuck close, nervous now. I could feel it in the way she clung to my arm, not with affection, but tension. Peter approached about 30 minutes in. She hadn't seen him coming. "Claire," he said, smiling. "Didn't expect to see you here." Her face went pale. "Peter, hi. This is..." I extended my hand. "James. Claire's husband." The look on Peter's face? Worth every lie she ever told. His smile faltered. "Oh, I thought you too. We're separated?" I finished for him. "That's news to me. Isn't that right, sweetheart?" Claire opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Just a shaky breath. Peter cleared his throat. "Well, pleasure to meet you. I'll let you two enjoy the evening." He left like a man who just realized he walked into the wrong house. Claire turned to me, eyes full of something that looked a lot like fear. "What was that?" I shrugged. "You tell me." She didn't respond. And for the rest of the night, neither of us smiled again. But I'll tell you one thing. That was the moment the mask didn't just slip. It cracked. And next time, it would shatter. Claire didn't speak on the drive home. Her hands were folded in her lap, knuckles white against the black fabric of her dress. She stared straight ahead, like the headlights were the only thing holding her together. I didn't say anything either. Not at first. Let the silence stretch. Let it build tension like the string of a bow pulled tight. When we got home, she went straight to the kitchen, pulled out a bottle of red wine, and poured a glass with a trembling hand. "You planned that," she finally said, eyes on the wine as it swirled in her glass. I hung my coat on the rack. "Planned what?" "That gala moment. You knew Peter would be there." "Of course I did," I said calmly, walking over to the sink to wash my hands. "You invited me." She turned to me, jaw clenched. "Why didn't you say anything before?" "You mean about your affair?" I met her eyes. "Because I wanted you to see what it looks like when the truth walks into the room." Claire's face twisted, not into tears, not into apologies, but into something darker. Resentment. "You humiliated me." "Not nearly as much as you humiliated me," I said, drying my hands on a towel. "For months." She took a long sip of wine, then whispered, "I was lonely." "Lonely people don't cheat, Claire. Lonely people talk. You made a choice." She slammed the glass on the counter, red droplets splashing like blood. "Fine. Yes, I cheated. I messed up. But don't act like you were perfect." I laughed, sharp and humorless. "This isn't about perfect. It's about loyalty. It's about integrity. It's about you telling another man you're separated while still sleeping in my bed." Her shoulders sagged, the fight draining out of her. She sank into one of the bar stools. "Peter doesn't even know who I am," I added, grabbing a folder from the drawer. "But I know who he is. Divorced twice. Sued by a former employee. Not exactly a prize." She blinked. "You had me followed?" "I hired a professional," I corrected, "because I needed proof before I did anything stupid. And trust me, Claire, what I'm about to do is anything but stupid." Her eyes flicked to the folder. I opened it and slid it across the counter. Photos. Texts. Receipts. One glossy still of her laughing with Peter on a hotel balcony, champagne glass in hand, wearing the necklace I bought for her birthday. She didn't even reach for it. "Is this the part where you throw me out?" she muttered. "No," I said, walking over to her. "This is the part where you get a choice." She looked up, wary. "We can do this the clean way," I said. "We split the assets, sell the house, tell our friends a sanitized version of the truth. You keep your job, your dignity." "And the other way?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. I leaned in, voice low. "The other way. I let the whole world know who you really are. Your firm. Your mother. That book club you lie to every Tuesday. The image of Claire, the sophisticated, faithful wife? Gone." She stared at me like she was trying to decide whether to cry or scream. "I'm not bluffing," I added. "There's a flash drive in the folder. Videos. Audio. Dozens of files. I didn't just gather proof, I curated it." "You've been planning this," she said slowly. I nodded. "Since the day I knew." She sat back, defeated. What do you want? Nothing more than you owe, I said. Sign the divorce papers. Walk away clean. No games, no smear campaigns, no courtroom drama. Just go. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, I'll think about it. You have 48 hours, I said, already heading upstairs. After that, the gloves come off. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Something about having the upper hand, it's oddly peaceful. The next morning, Claire was gone before sunrise. Left a sticky note on the fridge. Need time to think. Don't do anything stupid. It wasn't a plea. It was a warning. Like she still believed she could get back on top. But something had changed, and not just between us. In me. I wasn't the man she used to manipulate. I wasn't heartbroken James, sobbing into old birthday cards. I was focused. Cold. Controlled. 2 days passed. I heard nothing. Then, a knock at the door. It was Peter. And he looked nervous. James, right? He asked. I was darting like he expected me to swing on him. That's me, I said, stepping onto the porch. Claire isn't returning my calls, he said. I think she's in trouble. I tilted my head. Why would she be in trouble? He hesitated. Because someone's been sending me things. Emails. Screenshots. Photos of me and her. Stuff that could ruin my reputation. I crossed my arms. Sounds like you got involved with the wrong woman. He flinched. You did this. I didn't smile. I told Claire she had 48 hours. Peter shook his head, backing away. You're insane. Maybe, I said, stepping back into the house. But I'm also free. I closed the door in his face. And that, my friend, was the moment I knew. The mask had shattered. The truth was free. And revenge? Well, it had just begun to simmer. Claire came back on a Wednesday. No warning. No call. Just the sound of the garage door rumbling open like nothing had happened, as if she'd left for groceries and not disappeared in the middle of a high-stakes standoff. I was in the den, sorting through documents for my attorney. When I heard the door creak, I stayed seated. Didn't move. Just listened. Her heels clicked down the hallway, measured, hesitant. A haunted rhythm. She peeked around the corner like a teenager sneaking in after curfew. Hey, she said softly. I didn't respond. Just stared at her. I've been at a friend's place, she offered. Needed time. To think? I asked, finally setting my folder down. She nodded. To remember who I used to be. I almost laughed. Used to be? Claire took a deep breath and walked in. I read through everything you gave me. The evidence. The divorce terms. And, I'll sign, she said. You win. I shook my head. This isn't about winning, Claire. It's about ending something you already destroyed. Her lips pressed into a thin line. I know. For a moment, we just stood there in silence. No screaming. No pleading. Just two people who had finally seen each other for who they really were. I boxed up some of your things, I said, nodding toward the guest room. Figured you'd want to get started. Where am I supposed to go? She asked. I was flicking toward the window. Wherever Peter isn't, I said. Her face twisted. That wasn't real. Didn't look imaginary. Claire walked over to the bookshelf and ran her fingers across the spines like she was saying goodbye to a version of herself that never truly existed. I made mistakes, she murmured. Mistakes are when you forget to take the trash out, I said. You made choices. She didn't respond. Instead, she left without another word. And just like that, the woman I once loved became a ghost in my own home, present in photos, echoes, and memories I no longer trusted. I finalized the divorce 2 weeks later. Quick, clean, no court drama. She kept her car and a modest bank account. I kept everything else. She moved into a condo across town. Peter, as it turned out, had ghosted her too. Word got around fast. Apparently, he didn't take kindly to being publicly revealed as a side character in someone else's tragedy. Claire texted me once, about a month after the papers were signed. Claire, hope you're okay. I didn't respond. Not out of anger, but because, for the first time in months, I actually was okay. I wasn't healing. I was transforming. But here's where it turns. Because not every ghost stays gone. Some start haunting. It began with the knock. Late one night. 2 thuds, firm, but not frantic. I opened the door to find a man I didn't recognize. Well-dressed, mid-50s, briefcase in one hand, a leather coat draped over his arm. Mr. Wakefield? He asked. Yes. My name is Dalton Price. I represent Peter Hallstrom. I raised an eyebrow. Is this about the emails? He smiled politely. No. This is about the aftermath. He stepped inside without being invited. The confidence of someone who deals with rich, guilty men for a living. Peter's firm is in free fall, Dalton said, walking past me. Claire's affair. Your little public exposure. It set off a chain reaction. I warned her, I said simply. Dalton nodded. Peter's investors are backing out. One of his ex-wives is using the scandal to reopen litigation. He's not doing well. Not my problem. Dalton paused, then opened his briefcase and pulled out a manila folder. This is... I flipped it open. Photos of me. At work. At the gym. At a cafe. Claire in the background of two of them. Dalton said, he thinks you're not finished. I'm not. I admitted, shutting the folder. Dalton tilted his head. Then I'm here to ask, what do you want? That was the moment it clicked. They weren't scared of me. They were scared of what I hadn't done yet. I leaned forward. Tell Peter I'm not interested in money. Or silence. Tell him I want him to live with what he did. I want every board meeting to feel like a courtroom. Every investor to look at him like a ticking time bomb. That's what I want. Dalton didn't blink. He nodded once, packed his folder, and left. Claire's ghost had tried to warn him, but the fuse had been lit. And now? Now, I was just watching it burn. It's a funny thing, ruin. When it happens fast, people call it a tragedy. When it happens slowly, they call it consequences. Peter Hallstrom was learning the difference. The news broke on a Wednesday. Hallstrom Capital faces internal audit following whistleblower complaint. I didn't file it. I didn't need to. The seeds were already planted, watered by Claire's betrayal and fertilized by Peter's arrogance. Turns out when you build a kingdom on ego and off-the-books deals, it doesn't take much to start a landslide. Just a whisper, a rumor, one domino. And I had dominoes for days. I watched from my office, coffee in hand, as the headline scrolled across the news ticker. My phone buzzed every few minutes. Old friends, colleagues, even my cousin, who hadn't called since my wedding. James, they all said, did you see it? Yes, I saw it. I'd been watching the fire smolder for weeks. Now it was reaching the curtains. Peter tried damage control, press releases, interviews, a stiff apology in a navy blue suit. But you can't scrub panic from a smile. You can't lie to a room full of people already looking for an exit. Claire, meanwhile, stayed quiet. Her face didn't show up in the headlines. Just whispers online. Some anonymous account posting screenshots of hotel receipts. A blog dissecting her text messages. Internet detectives are terrifying when they're bored and have Wi-Fi. She tried reaching out again. Claire, this has gone too far. Claire, you're not this cruel, James. Claire, we both made mistakes. I read them, deleted them. Not because I hated her, because I had already buried her. Not literally, of course. Tempting as it might have been once or twice. But she wasn't the Claire I married. That Claire died the moment she invited another man into the life we built together and thought I wouldn't notice. The woman texting me now? That was someone else entirely. I didn't expect to see her again, but she showed up one evening, just after sunset. Same knock as always, sharp, precise. Like she still believed she had the right to be here. I opened the door, leaned against the frame. Hi, she said. Bold move, I replied. I had to see you. For what? She hesitated, then held up a manila envelope. This is from Peter. I didn't take it. She set it on the porch rail between us, then folded her arms. He's leaving the country, she said. Going to Europe. Quietly. Coward's exit. She didn't deny it. He's afraid you'll do more. I might. Claire stared at me, the exhaustion etched deep around her eyes. Her hair wasn't curled. Her makeup was light. She looked more human than I'd seen her in months. I came to ask you to stop, she said. Too late. James, she pleaded. I lost everything. The house. My job. My friends won't even return my calls. And now, Peter's gone too. I didn't take any of that, I said calmly. You gave it away. A breeze swept between us. Cold. Honest. She stepped closer. Do you hate me? I thought about it. No, I said. She blinked. I don't hate you. I continued. I just don't believe in you anymore. Claire looked like she wanted to cry, but she didn't. She had already spent her tears somewhere else. I could see it. She'd cried for Peter, for her job, maybe even for her image. But not for me. Never for me. I nodded toward the envelope. Tell him to run faster. Then I closed the door. I didn't look back. That night, I burned the envelope. Didn't read it. Didn't need to. I already knew what was inside. Some desperate plea, some final bargaining chip. Maybe a threat. Maybe a bribe. Didn't matter. Peter was a ghost now too. One more liar consigned to the ash heap of my memory. But as the flames devoured the paper, I thought about what I'd become. I didn't recognize the man in the mirror anymore. And I liked him better. He was quieter, sharper, stronger. The kind of man who didn't just survive betrayal. He turned it into strategy. They say revenge is a dish best served cold. Wrong. Revenge is a fire. Slow burning. Silent. Beautiful. And I had just gotten warm. The fire had spread further than I expected. After Peter vanished into the European mist, his empire fell like a drunk leaning on a broken crutch. His partners bailed. Lawsuits rained down. One former assistant even gave an interview primetime. National TV. Told the world Peter Hallstrom had integrity like Swiss cheese. Claire? She stayed quiet. But quiet didn't mean stable. Aaron, my private investigator, texted me weeks later. Aaron, Claire's meeting with an employment attorney. Might try to spin this into a wrongful termination. I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me thought, let her. Let her scramble. Let her play victim in a theater with no stage. But then I remembered something my dad told me once. Sometimes, the worst thing you can do to a person is leave them exactly where they landed. So I didn't interfere. I let her make her play. Let her lawyer leak a story. Let her do interviews with vague tears and emotional betrayal. It worked for a minute. Then the truth started leaking. Not mine. Not from me. From her own supporters. Old friends. Co-workers. Women who'd watched her swan through life like she owned every spotlight. She wasn't faithful, one tweeted. She was calculated. She lied about James for sympathy. Funny how karma works. Within 2 weeks, she dropped the lawsuit and deleted her social media. And just like that, she wasn't a wife. She wasn't a victim. She was a cautionary tale. Months passed. My house was quiet. Clean. No more makeup stains on the towels. No perfume ghosting through the hallway. Just me, the morning light, and a dog I adopted on a whim named Radar. Radar didn't ask questions. He didn't lie. He just curled up next to my feet and watched the world with the same suspicion I'd learned to adopt. I went back to work full-time. Got promoted. Bought a cabin upstate. Started splitting my time between concrete and pine trees. One evening, I ran into a former friend of Claire's at the grocery store. Nicole. She looked surprised. I thought you left town, she said. I thought Claire did. Nicole gave me a long look. You okay? I nodded. Better than I've ever been. She hesitated. Then, she was never what she pretended to be. Some of us knew. Then why didn't you say anything? I asked. Nicole shrugged. Would you have believed me? I didn't answer. Because I knew the truth. I probably wouldn't have. Love doesn't blind you. It builds a filter. A perfect, soft focus lens. And once it cracks, once the light gets in, you realize just how sharp the shadows are. We said goodbye, polite, like war veterans bumping into each other at a coffee shop. And as I drove home that night, I realized something strange. I didn't feel angry anymore. Not even bitter. Just clean. Like rain had finally come after the longest drought. It wasn't violent. No broken bones. No blood. But make no mistake, it was revenge. Peter lost his company. Claire lost her career. Their reputations were ash. And I never raised my voice once. That's the part nobody warns you about. That vengeance, real vengeance, doesn't always wear armor or swing a sword. Sometimes, it just smiles. Waits. Listens. Sometimes, revenge wears a suit and says, good morning to the neighbor while planning someone's professional funeral behind a keyboard. I didn't burn the house down. I rewired the foundation, then watched it collapse under its own weight. Claire emailed me once more. Just one line. Claire, I hope you're happy. I never replied. Because I wasn't happy. I was satisfied. There's a difference. Happiness is fleeting. Satisfaction is permanent. And when you've been lied to, betrayed, played like a background character in your own life, satisfaction tastes better than any sweet word or apology. I live quiet now. Simple. I walk Radar every morning. I hike every other weekend. I make strong coffee and read books with dog-eared pages. Sometimes I even laugh. And every now and then, I think of Claire and Peter. Not with longing. Not even with anger. Just curiosity. Where are they now? Who are they now? And do they ever wonder what I would have done if I hadn't chosen restraint? The answer? They should be glad I did.